Hello everybody, welcome to the Centbee Show. I'm your host Lorien Gamaroff and my co-host is Kage Ntshingila. Kage, welcome to the show.
So, Miss G.
How are you doing?
Good in yourself, man.
I'm very good. Happy to be doing our usual.
Yeah. Our favorite day of the week.
Our favorite day of the week. Busy recording a show about Centbee, talking about mobile money on fire.
Yeah.
I think we've got the jet fuel that can really make mobile money useful around the world.
We do. BSV, yeah.
Yeah, BSV, Bitcoin SV.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's never. I think that we never speak about it enough, but you know, the ability to use Bitcoin SV really gives us a superpower.
It does, yeah.
When we think about mobile money around the world today, of course, it's just growing and growing, and more people are getting into mobile money. It's really just taking over the world. It's a mainstream financial service, mobile money.
Yeah.
But using Bitcoin SV really just takes it into outer space.
It does.
Where you can send money as conveniently as it is to send money from one person to the next when we're sitting next to each other. To do that around the world, I mean, that is incredible.
It is.
And it really just speaks to the fact that Bitcoin SV is so transformative and so exciting, and it's going to be so empowering for millions of people around the world, and it's just so nice to be part of that revolution.
It is.
Part of this game-changing event, where this innovation takes over and just makes the world a better place. So I'm really happy that we're in this space and doing what we're doing.
It is actually like quite heartwarming, like I always say, because I mean, the technology itself speaks for, you know, millions of people, basically, you know, and looking at the current system that exists in terms of sending money, I mean, that's the ultimate solution we need, you know, like you're saying, peer-to-peer transactions shouldn't take that long or, you know, be that costly. You know, you should be able to be sending money as much as it is easy sending a text, you know?
Yeah.
And we have like fully embodied that with our app, because if you can check, like we're trying to become like, you know, that social element of just connecting people through BSV, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The social thing.
Yeah.
We love that.
We love that.
You know, we think of ourselves as a social networking app.
It is.
I mean, you can send pictures to somebody, you can send text, you can send voice notes, you can send money.
Yeah.
It's all part of that social aspect of life where we are not just living on our own, doing our own thing.
Yeah.
We are communicating with each other, we are sharing our lives with others, and a very important thing is this ability to share value.
Yeah.
So it's such a critical part of life, and the fact that we look at it as a social thing makes it fun.
It is.
Because now we are speaking to people, and we're trying to get people involved. We're speaking to consumers, and especially we're speaking to the young demographic.
Yeah.
And it's so fun to be able to market to a young audience, because it means we don't have to be all stuffy and boring and
look like banks and stuff.
We don't want to look like a bank.
Nah.
We want to look like a bank for young people, a future bank.
Quite ironic that you speak of the market that we're trying to serve. It's quite a difficult market. It must be fun.
And that's why we always try and make our marketing posts, our ads and the things that we post on social networks fun.
Yeah. I don't think we have competition when it comes to that, like in terms of the messaging that we're trying to put out. I mean, thanks to AI that we are able to, you know, at least put out our message in a way that we are also comfortable with, confident with, you know?
Exactly. We don't have to go and find stock footage trying to speak the message that we're trying to convey.
That was a nightmare, Mr. Gio. I can't. For me, it's been like such a rapid transition, because not so long ago, you know, I was outsourcing stock imagery just to get our message out there, and we came to a point that was super stale.
Yeah.
And you can tell.
Looks the same as everybody else.
You know what I'm saying? It's like we're probably borrowing from the same like asset bank, you know, and it doesn't give us that breaking edge that we actually have through BSV. I mean, we need to be speaking and looking the part.
Yes, we can create material that is putting that message across exactly what we want to convey.
Yeah.
We can decide anything we like, and we can go and create that using generative AI. So it's so fun that we don't only have to build out a payment network that's cheap and convenient, but also we can play around with the image of Centbee.
Yeah.
And we can go and create these ridiculous looking posts and it really does create a kind of perception of Centbee that we're not a stuffy, boring, old traditional payment company, mobile money company, bank. We want to be seen as relevant.
But we are.
We certainly are relevant, but perception matters.
Yeah, dear.
And also, you know, when you have a business like Centbee, you also want to have some fun. It's nice that we can sit whenever we sit and we talk about our marketing and our ads. We just have fun with it. You know, we come up with all sorts of funny things, and you go and produce these crazy looking pictures that we laugh about mostly. And sometimes we think, should we even post this? Is it going to make people not take us too seriously? But it's really fun to be able to play around with that, because they really are just hilarious. Maybe you can throw some up during the show.
In fact, we should. Guys, remember to check out Centbee on X, because that's where we are like hyper active as well. But also on Facebook, just check out our ads. We really trying to push out a very cool, appealing message to you guys. And yeah, I mean, remember, we still have an open door policy. So hit us up, subscribe. You know the drill by now, yeah?
I'm sure they do.
They do. You know, there's been news going around about one of the biggest events that's coming in this crypto space, you know, the Bitcoin halving.
Right.
What is that all about?
Yeah, that's a long story. I guess we're gonna launch into the mining process, and
we have to break it down like we always do.
Yeah, let's break it down. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So now, of course, when it comes to Bitcoin, and I'm just talking generally about Bitcoin, not any specific version of Bitcoin, there is this process called mining, of course, which I think most people have heard about, although obviously it's quite difficult concept for a lot of people to understand.
It is, because I'm sure like a lot of people, like they connote it to the physical term, you know, mining.
Yes.
Literally, there's probably a shaft of Bitcoin there.
Guys with pickaxes hammering them out. Right. So, of course, it's not like that. It all revolves around servers and CPUs and all that sort of thing. So what we can talk about is just generally how it contributes to the whole technical nature of how Bitcoin is strung together.
Yeah.
So when it comes to Bitcoin, obviously we know about transactions, and people are sending transactions and paying each other and all that sort of thing. But the way that Bitcoin worked is that it was operated by big companies that have large computer infrastructure. And what they do is they listen on the network for transactions that are flying around the network. And then what they do is they start grouping those transactions together into what we call blocks. And now what happens is a race to see who gets to take their block and add it on to the previous blocks in the Bitcoin system. When we talk about the blockchain, that is basically blocks of transactions, so transactions that have been grouped together into blocks, and then we end up with a chain of blocks. So one block they're all linked together. One block gets created, it then gets added to the previous block, and so on until we have this chain of blocks. And that's where the word blockchain came from. And so the whole idea of mining came about, saying if you want to be able to add a block of transactions to the previous block, you have to compete with other miners in solving a puzzle, a computer puzzle, or what's called a hash puzzle. And all the miners are now working to try and solve that hash puzzle before everybody else. And the one that solves that hash puzzle that's the miner that gets to add their block to the blockchain.
Okay.
So mining is a very competitive process.
Yeah.
And it also requires a lot of computing power to do that. Now, when Bitcoin got started, one of the important things around mining was that Satoshi Nakamoto wanted to ensure that the miners were incentivized to mine those blocks. And so the way Satoshi Nakamoto devised the system was that every block, the miner would get a reward.
Yeah.
And it started off being 50 Bitcoins, and then over time, the amount of the Bitcoins that were rewarded was halved and so on. And that's what we're going to get into now with this whole halving.
Yeah.
So mining really is just a process where companies around the world who have large data centers, what they do is they all compete to try and get their block added to the blockchain.
Yeah.
And in doing so, they get a reward. Now, this was very important because, of course, we know that there is in Bitcoin a fixed supply of Bitcoins.
Yeah.
And that is 21 million.
Yes.
And so when Satoshi Nakamoto first launched the system, he issued these 21 million Bitcoins. And the way that those coins were distributed is through that mining process.
Yeah.
And so 50 for every block at first, and then 25, and then 12 and a half, until eventually the full 21 million Bitcoins
Circulated.
is now allocated and given and distributed to the network.
Yeah.
So the block rewards was a very important process to be able to incentivize miners to start mining. And as the system then grew and as the value of Bitcoin grew, then miners would be able to earn fees from those transactions. But then over time, as the rewards are diminished, the fees make up for the miner income that is lost from the rewards being halved over time.
So basically with the rewards, sort of like a payment in a sense, because...
Yeah, it's not a payment so much as an incentive, a subsidy.
A subsidy, yeah.
Just to get the network going. And it was never the intention that that is how miners make their income. And clearly you can see, because if the reward gets halved every 4 years or so, then clearly the miners are going to still need to be able to earn some income
somehow,
to make up for all that computing power that they're committing to the network. So the reward halving is a process that happens every 4 years or every 210,000 blocks, which on 210,000 on average 10-minute blocks, 4 years or so.
Yeah.
Then what will happen is that reward will get halved, and the hope is that the fees in those blocks can make up for the lost income. And so essentially that's really what halving is. Now, of course, it comes with a lot of implications.
Definitely, I can imagine, because in a system like that, I mean, you find that most companies got into it because of the rewarding system that's in place. But now that it's being halved, it somehow would affect the whole operation.
It does. I mean, if you think about it, if you are mining and your profit is just a few percent, like 5-10%, if you're lucky, just like any other normal business, then if your income is going to be halved, then of course, how can that network remain and continue if the income is going to be reduced by 50%?
Yeah, that's crazy.
So that is the process that's about to happen. But of course, people in Bitcoin, and of course now we have to differentiate between the BSV understanding around halving and how miners are impacted, and the BTC understanding of the halving, because we know that with BTC, those blocks are intentionally kept small.
Small, super small.
Which means that if the miner is going to have his income reduced from the reward, he's going to have to make up that lost income through fees. And if there are only a few number of transactions in those blocks, then of course the fees for those transactions are going to have to go a lot higher.
Super high.
But now remember, Bitcoin wasn't designed to have very small blocks. That really was a change that came about when the BTC community decided that it was better to have smaller blocks, because they wanted to keep the network, in their words, more decentralized. If you have big blocks of transactions, it means that you need bigger infrastructure to be able to handle those blocks. And the only way that you can have that big infrastructure is if you are a big company that has the resources to be able to sustain those big blocks. Now, for the BTC crowd, they thought, well, that's not what they want. They don't want Bitcoin becoming centralized in a few companies that could easily be shut down, no matter where they are in the world. And also BTC have this concept of what they call non-mining nodes, where they believe that everybody who wants to should be able to have a laptop or a little computer with a hard drive that is downloading those blocks, and then they are able to look at the transactions directly on the blockchain instead of having to rely on a third party, on a company. It's actually making the network more inefficient and degrading the performance of the network. But anyway, that is why they decided that they wanted to keep those blocks small. They wanted to keep them small so that everybody could have a small hard drive on their computers. They didn't have to have terabyte-sized hard drives, because if you have small blocks, it means only every 10 minutes you're getting a meg or two of data, and that's easy. You can handle that over time. And so this was one of the reasons why they said, no, let's keep the blocks small. But now BTC has a major problem, because if those blocks are going to be, the rewards are going to be halved every 4 years, how are the miners going to make up for the lost income if there's not enough transactions in that block to be able to garner the fees so that they can make up for that lost income? Now, of course, the way that Bitcoin was designed was that the blocks shouldn't be small. There should be millions of transactions in those blocks. And what we end up with is, as the mining rewards are reduced over time, that is made up with numbers of transactions with fees that can then make up that lost revenue.
Which makes sense,
That is the natural way that Bitcoin was created. BTC now have a major problem, but they don't see it as a problem. They think, well, that's fine. There are going to be solutions to that. And I guess we can talk about those sorts of solutions.
Cool. So yeah, Ms. G, just based on what you're saying, it sounds like the BTC crowd will be relying on the BTC price going higher in order for them to make up for the loss of basically the halving.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, that is pretty much their solution to this whole thing, because on the one hand, they could say, well, if fees are going to be what makes up the lost revenue, given that there are only a few number of transactions inside a BTC block, well, let's say the fees go up, and that means the miners can still earn fees, but the number of transactions don't increase. Well, that, first of all, it sounds like a crazy idea.
It does.
Because do you want to have a system where the fees just go higher and higher and higher until...
Doesn't make sense.
Well, nobody's going to use that system. So the fees going higher means that people will just stop using BTC for transactions. Now they...
because essentially it takes away from what the white paper states Bitcoin to be.
So certainly not cash.
Not cash,
Because cash, the fees are supposed to be...
We're talking like the low cost of those peer-to-peer transactions.
Lower than anything. So what are the solutions then for that, for the high fee price? Well, first of all, of course, they've got that hodl mentality, where they say, look, Bitcoin isn't meant to be transacted.
It's gold.
It's meant to be bought off an exchange, and then you go and put it on a cold wallet, or you put it somewhere, and then you don't touch it. You have a strong hand, they always talk about strong hands. Don't sell. They've got that whole mentality of selling is for losers. And the reason for that is because they believe, of course, that BTC is digital gold, as you said, and as the currencies around the world hyperinflate, then the value of their BTC will be going higher and higher, and eventually you can retire. So that's their first solution. They say, well, if the fees go high, just don't transact. And the transactions can be left to big whales who are happy to move $1 million in BTC if they're going to pay a $10 transaction fee, no problem.
Yeah.
So that's their first thing. They say, well, don't use it. Don't transact with BTC if the fees get too high.
That's funny.
Leave it to the whales. But then, of course, they've got that whole network that they are still trying to get off the ground, which is called the Lightning Network.
Yeah.
And the idea of the Lightning Network is that we move the transactions off BTC into this new network called Lightning.
Okay.
And that is going to solve that problem, where Lightning now is the way you transact, and BTC, the actual Bitcoin blockchain network, is just used to settle those transactions.
That sounds complex already.
Yes, exactly. It sounds super complex. I mean, Lightning is still, they've got problems. It looks like they're never going to solve it. There are inherent problems there that just seem unsolvable. So that's really pinning your hopes on something out of desperation that the problem will be solved. So when it comes to the high fees making up for the block reward, of course, their solutions, hodling it, don't use it, or use Lightning, just seems like, I mean, what's the point of it then?
That is quite clear, because if you look at it, like I'm saying, BSV is about the people, and BTC is out of touch with the reality, because we're talking exchange stuff that has nothing to do with day-to-day transactions. If we're talking microtransactions and stuff, those are the people, so these guys are clearly out of touch, Mr. G.
Well, they've definitely lost the principle of Bitcoin, as you say, as a digital cash system.
Yeah.
Now it's a digital gold system. So the fees going high, as far as they're concerned, isn't a problem, because they'll just stop transacting on the BTC blockchain. And if you do want to transact, well, we'll hope that Lightning Network is going to solve that problem sometime in the future. But now, that's not the only solutions that they have. You just talked about you mentioned the price going higher.
Yeah.
Now, that is also a potential solution, because if miners are earning 6 Bitcoins now and their reward is halved, now they're earning 3. Well, if the price doubles, then the miners still make their income. So they think, well, that's fine, because we all know, that's what they think, that BTC is just going to constantly go higher and higher, and the miners will be able to benefit from that. They will be happy to have the rewards halved, because by the time the rewards are minuscule, the price of BTC will be $100 million or whatever it is they think that it's going to be. And the miners,
that's a pipe dream.
That's a pipe dream, and the miners will make up for their lost revenue because the price is now higher.
Because if we take it back to what we spoke about in the previous episode, is the intrinsic value that it should have as a form of currency, in a sense.
Yeah, well, as a ledger that can be used.
I mean, that alone it shows that there is much value in BSV, because there's a ledger that can be used. The cost of transaction, like sending money across the world,
or just using the ledger to record information, is really low in Bitcoin, BSV. But in BTC, of course, you can't use the ledger. So it doesn't have that utility use case. So they're hoping that the price goes up so that it can make up for lost revenue. They're also hoping that the fees can just keep going up and people stop transacting on BTC and moves to Lightning. Now, of course, another whole thing about the price going up is that they also think, well, if the reward is halved, essentially what's happening is there are less Bitcoins coming into the market.
Yeah, the demand now is getting higher.
Well, if the demand is even the same, let's just say demand doesn't change.
Yeah.
So people still want to buy the same amount of Bitcoin that they've been doing every day. And now there are less Bitcoins to go around. Well, that's supply and demand. And if the supply is reduced and the demand stays the same, well, the price should go higher.
Yeah.
And so they're saying, look, it's a basic economic principle. The supply is being reduced.
Yeah.
Of course, everybody still wants BTC now more than ever, because they have got ETFs and all that.
Yeah.
And so we even see a self-fulfilling prophecy that's happening in the markets. You can see it, and it's been happening for the last few months, is that people now, they believe this, and they think, well, the supply is going to be halved, and that means the price is going to go higher. So let's start buying. We saw that with the ETF.
Yeah.
People were buying BTC before the ETFs were announced because they thought, well, when the ETFs come, there's going to be institutional demand for BTC and the price is going to go to the moon.
It's the rumor appetite.
There's the rumor. The rumor is that there's an ETF. Let's go and get Bitcoin now. So when the news hits, we can then make tons of money because everybody's going to be buying BTC and we can sell it to them.
Yeah.
And we saw that. Now, that's exactly what's happening now with the halving. People believe what I've just been saying, that the supply is being reduced, the demand is at least going to stay the same, but it seems it could even go higher if there is institutional demand. And that means that with less Bitcoins and more demand, the price is going to go higher.
Yeah.
The miners are going to be happy because they will get more value for that BTC that they're mining, even though that the number is being reduced, and the process can continue. Now, that's the ideal situation. If everybody believes that, and if that happens, then yes, things will just continue.
Yeah.
But there's also a downside to this whole thing if none of those things or some of those things don't hold what I mentioned.
Yeah, because what I want to understand is that you mentioned the positive side of it. Let's look at the negative, because let's say the demand lessens and also now the halving doesn't equate to the compensation of, these guys making what they need to make in return. What happens then?
Now that's very important to think about, because let's just say the price doesn't go higher.
Yeah.
I mean, even though we can see it going higher now, what if there is a price crash?
Yeah.
We saw that with ETFs.
Yeah.
People bought that rumor that the ETFs were coming, and when the news arrived, we saw how the price didn't go sky high. It went down.
Yeah.
So that could very well happen. Now the halving happens and the BTC value, at least the price, always got to remember the difference.
Yes.
The BTC price is reduced, it goes down.
Yeah.
How are those miners going to make the money? Now remember, mining isn't this hugely profitable business.
Yeah.
It's very resource intensive, very costly, price of electricity and all that, and also staff to maintain all that stuff, and the hardware.
Infrastructure,
It's really expensive. So they're not making a huge amount of profit. And of course, it's quite competitive. So if the income is reduced by half, those miners that are only just making a bit of profit on top of it, they're going to bail. They're going to say, look, it's not profitable for us now to carry on mining at 3 Bitcoins.
Yeah.
So they're going to exit. And when that happens, there's now a major technical event that happens on Bitcoin where the mining process, because there are less miners, blocks are not created every 10 minutes on the regular cycle.
Yeah.
And so there's going to be a bit of an earthquake.
I can imagine, because it sounds like there's already backlog now of transactions that need to be sort of like updated within the system.
If you have less miners mining, it means that it takes longer to create those blocks.
Yeah. And that was like one of the most simple analogies that one can understand this whole system with,
Yeah, every 10 minutes a new bus comes by.
Geez, if you look at the BSV bus, like literally there was like buses coming in, like literally just
the bus comes in and everybody gets into the bus.
Everybody gets in, and then the next bus comes in and it's also packed. But if you look at the BTC bus, it's been like parked there just trying to wait for people to onboard.
Well, what happens is that there's a whole crowd of people at the bus stop, but only the people who pay the highest ticket price get into the bus. The rest of them have to stick around and wait for the next bus, and hopefully they get into it.
That sucks.
Every 10 minutes. So now what's happening is that there's this backlog. But if miners decide, look, it's not economically viable for us to now process these blocks because we're not earning enough reward, there's going to be less buses. There's going to be less miners trying to process these blocks. And that means the blocks are going to get slower and slower because If there's less miners on the network, it means that there are less miners looking for the solution of that hash puzzle, and it takes longer to find, and that means blocks are taking longer to get created. And so, as you say, we have a backlog. Now, the way Bitcoin solved that is what's called the difficulty adjustment. And what's very interesting about Bitcoin is that there is a heartbeat in Bitcoin. And you can think of the heartbeat as being the 10-minute interval between the new blocks that get created. Now, if there are miners that leave the network and it starts taking longer for those blocks to be solved, longer than 10 minutes, every 2 weeks, what happens is there's a difficulty adjustment. And then the average amount of time for those blocks to be created is checked. And if it's greater than 10 minutes, what happens is the difficulty of that mining hash puzzle is reduced, just to make sure that it gets more in line with that 10-minute average for block creation.
So the opposite of that is the blocks being created like 5 minutes quicker.
Yes, if more miners are mining on the network.
So how does the difficulty adjustment work there?
Well, then the difficulty will increase.
Okay.
And that's just to make sure that there's on average every 10 minutes for those blocks to be created. The adjustment is put in place depending on how quick or slow the blocks are being created.
Yeah.
But just going back to the whole issue now of the reward being halved. If the reward is halved, miners are going to leave the network because they are just going to be unprofitable. That's if the fees don't make up for that lost revenue or the price doesn't make up for that lost revenue. If that doesn't happen, then the miners are going to leave, and it's going to then take a lot longer to solve those blocks. And it could result, and some people theorize that it could result in a death spiral, where because there are so few miners now willing to mine on that network, blocks are going to take forever to get created, and people are just going to stop transacting because they realize there's no point. How can we use this thing if we can't get our blocks mined? And so this is a very real problem that could happen with BTC if the price doesn't go up, if the fees don't go higher. It could result in a death spiral. And so this is going to be something that we need to take seriously. Now, of course, it hasn't happened over the history of Bitcoin, the death spiral, because the price has always tended to go up higher, especially prior to the halving, because people start buying that rumor. Well, less supply, more demand, price is going to go up, let's start buying. And we can see that in the charts right now. So it remains to be seen, is this going to be a halving that creates the death spiral? Or is it just going to carry on and the price is going to increase to reflect that? We don't know, but it certainly is a concern that we should take seriously.
I mean, we should, because looking at, I always refer back to the blueprint, the white paper, and just assessing like how BTC is operating, it's nowhere close to being sustainable, because over time, what are we expecting or hoping for BTC price to be? That
the illusion or the delusion of a digital token with no commodity backing or utility can continue rising in price in the minds of people.
Doesn't make sense, Mr. G.
That's the hope. That is the one thing that people are pinning their hopes on, that we can suspend our better judgment and believe that this fictional thing, it's not fictional, but it's this intangible, useless thing can still have value in people's minds. And if that continues, people have believed in crazier things. If that delusion continues, then sure, this can carry on for another halving, maybe the next halving. This one is going down to 3 point something Bitcoin.
3 point something, because it's on 6.5. 2.5 or something.
So if there's not going to be a death spiral on this halving, maybe it will happen when the price of BTC, at least the reward for mining a block goes down to 1 Bitcoin. Maybe the price will be even higher then in another 4 years' time. Who knows? It doesn't seem likely. I feel like the fiction is going to people are going to realize that there is nothing here.
Yeah.
But also, of course, we're going to see how BSV plays out in terms of expanding on that idea of a utility ledger, where businesses are going to be using Bitcoin SV for all sorts of things.
Yeah.
And people will then look over and say, well, here on one hand, we've got this useless token, and on the other hand, we've got a very useful token. Why are we spending so much money on these BTC tokens when they don't do anything?
Yeah.
Maybe that will be the event that then eventually makes it unsustainable. But as you know, markets can stay irrational, and they certainly have been irrational over the last 15 years of BTC's continued existence without any utility value. But who knows? Who knows what's going to happen?
Honestly, Mr. G, I think the dawn of awakening is coming, and people will realize like which is the true Bitcoin, and that's BSV. Guys, remember, the worst place you could ever have your BSVs on an exchange. So if you have it on an exchange, just send it to your Centbee wallet, experience the power of BSV through Centbee. I mean, come on, guys, you're missing out already. Remember to comment, subscribe, show some love. You know the drill by now. All right, cool. Thanks for that, Mr. G. You know, it's always awesome, like having to be schooled by you, just unfolding the whole crypto space, and also just unfolding how important BSV is, like in this space, because I don't think there is any other competition for BSV. BSV is the only and true nature of what Bitcoin should be. And you guys should also just check out our previous episode, and you'll be plugged in terms of understanding which is the real Bitcoin and which is the real blockchain. So yeah, remember to download the Centbee app, subscribe, show some love, experience the power of BSV through Centbee. Mobile money on fire, yo. Yeah, Ms. G, we're going to be stepping into this week's user questions and feedback on socials. Actually, this week we don't have any questions. We've been getting much love from the guys.
I think it's because our support chat inside Centbee Wallet is so darn useful.
So yeah, guys, remember to check out our in-app support. Just tap on the menu, hit help there, and then you can ask any question. You should be able to get a prompt response from there. But if you're not satisfied, just hit us up directly at support@centbee.com, or just, drop us a comment on socials. Remember, we have an open door policy, so your opinions value.
Yeah, I just want to say we do take our support very seriously. We want people to be able to give us feedback, and if you have problems with Centbee, obviously because we want to be able to fix those problems and make sure that your experience with Centbee is wonderful and fun, and so that you are willing to go out and share Centbee with others. So anytime, we do have an X profile, a Centbee support there. We've got Facebook. We've got support at centbee.com. That's probably the best way to reach us if you want a direct human interaction. If the chat in the support chat inside Centbee doesn't help, reach us on support@centbee.com, and we'll have one of our highly skilled support consultants be able to help you through whatever problem you have.
Yep. Cool. So yeah, guys, I'm going to be stepping into this week's highlights on X. Actually, most of them are on X. So first one comes from Clint. Clint is saying, Centbee will never fail you. Try it now. Not my handwriting, guys. You heard it from Clint, you know. So I suggest you try it the Centbee app, because, we never fail you, hey.
Well, thanks, Clint, for that. I appreciate that vote of confidence. Although, to be honest, sometimes Centbee does have a glitch or two. I mean, it is a software app that we're working hard to make work great. But there will be some times where maybe something doesn't happen. Maybe a transaction doesn't get broadcast on the blockchain properly, or maybe there's a delay in a bank transfer. We do work with other partners, and so there's all sorts of things that could potentially go wrong. But please know that we are, as I said, here to support you, and we want to help you through that process. So I appreciate Clint. Thank you very much for that. But I guess we can't say that there's never a problem.
No, but he's saying we will never fail people.
Oh, that's a good point. Yes, we will always be there for you.
Exactly.
Right. Yes.
Exactly.
That's true.
Sure. Thanks, Clint. Our second one comes from Evan. So they are saying, spread love with Centbee. We can provide bank, sell, or cash money for her.
Yeah. Well, that's our bank transfers, our mobile money transfers, our cash collections. We've got a number of countries that we are available in for bank transfers, mobile money transfers, and cash collections.
Yeah. So yeah, thanks for that, Evan. Yeah. Third one comes from Robert. Robert says Centbee connects finance and friendships. What?
Yes, exactly. Social payments.
Yeah, that's so accurate and concise. Eh?
Centbee is a social payment app.
Yeah.
It's about activating a lifestyle and engaging with friends. The soul of Centbee is about the social nature of payments.
Yeah. So yeah, guys, remember, if you don't have the Centbee app, just check it out on the stores. If you haven't updated, I suggest you do it now, because you could be missing out on the latest features. Yeah. So yeah, our fourth one actually comes from Kayla. She's saying Centbee offers a seamless solutions for global money transfers, delivering speed, affordability, and simplicity. Great Centbee, the best.
Thanks, Kayla. Bitcoin SV, I mean, it's a global digital cash payment network. You don't have to worry about cross-border remittances through traditional services anymore. It's baked in this idea of global digital cash.
Gone are the days where you used to like wait hours or days to get your money across the world, you know? Like with BSV, literally you can send money to New York right now, different time zones, and the person receives it within that time, you know? So yeah, guys, remember to check out the Centbee app, show some love, subscribe. You know the drill by now. So yeah, Mr. G.
Yeah.
We've come to the end of our episode.
Cool.
Yep.
Yeah, no, thank you very much, Kage. Thanks for the questions and the topic. You know, this Bitcoin halving, it's exciting for some, but there's definitely things you've got to think about.
Yeah.
It's not just going to mean that your BTC wealth doubles overnight. It could be that this halving is a risk to the whole idea of BTC.
Yeah.
Now, of course, with BSV, the idea of having halving is also the same. It's part of Bitcoin. But of course, the way Bitcoin was designed was that those halvings are just part of the system. And with the numbers of transactions that can be put into BSV blocks, it means that miners can continue to stay profitable just the way Satoshi Nakamoto designed the whole system.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure that people appreciate that this is not just something that means your bags are going to double in value.
Yeah.
This is a very risky time for BTC, and it remains to be seen how it's going to pan out.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess we can call it now.
Yeah. Unfortunately.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
You know, if we had it our way, we would stretch it. But
yeah. Exactly. Well, anyway, I want to thank you, Kage. Thanks for the cool show, and I want to thank everybody for joining us to come and watch here. Please share with your friends. Please like and subscribe, and we are going to be encouraged to continue providing valuable information around Bitcoin and blockchain for the future.
Yeah.